say, that's why you look at the weekly candles, because the result of this week is literally exactly what we expected. We got some more downside follow through on Bitcoin, but look at these moving averages. Major development here. We've got the 50-day now crossing above the 200-day moving average. That's great. That is a bullish development. Doesn't mean price can't go lower, but we are continuing to see bullish developments throughout the markets. Now, look at the DXY. Weekly candles. Interesting. 2 green weekly candles when we have 2 red weekly candles for Bitcoin. That's literally the way it works. But now we're starting to see that inverse sinking of the DXY in Bitcoin. That's typical. We didn't really see that on this giant down move we had through the second half of 2022. But now we're starting to see the DXY and Bitcoin do their inverse dance that they like to do. So let's zoom in a little bit farther on the DXY, because I want to talk about this trend line that I've been observing here, right? So what do we see if we look on the 4-hour chart on the DXY? How has price interacted with this trend line? Well, what we see are swift rejections at this trend line, right? 1 swift rejection, 2 swift rejections, 3 swift rejections at this trend line. But what do we see here right now? Not a swift rejection. We see consolidation beneath the trend line. And what that often indicates is that price is getting ready to bust above that trend line. See, we didn't have consolidation over here. We didn't have consolidation over here. We just had a swift rejection. Price just ran right up to it and got rejected very quickly. But here, price ran up, and then price held below. It's holding below. And this could be considered a bull flag, cup and handle, some type of, bullish configuration here. So I do think we need to be weary that the DXY is gearing up to break above this trend line. Now, what do we have going on this week that is going to be a catalyst for volatility? We have the CPI data being released on Tuesday of this week. Now, I have no idea what that's going to say and how the market's going to react, but I would speculate that the CPI data could be very positive for the market. It could be another one of those things where it's like, here we go, inflation is under control, the Fed did their job, here we go, market going to new highs. And ultimately, that kind of is what is happening on the macro picture. We do see inflation starting to ease its grip on the economy over the next, year or so. I do believe it's going to come back ripping and roaring and destroying everything. But for now, it's starting to ease its grip. So I think it's possible that the CPI data is going to be something that the market likes, and the market is likely to rise on that. So how could the market rise if the DXY is also rising? Well, this is why I think this week could be a very tricky week here. So let's go down to the daily candles on the S&P 500 here and just talk about what I think is emerging. So for this move, we've discussed that the move we're in that began on about December 28th and had its most recent high on February 2nd, very possible that that is a wave 1 within a wave 3, right? And so this larger move here, we got wave 1 all the way from October to December 14th. That's all a wave 1. And then December 14th down to December 28th, that's all your wave 2. And then your wave 3 is this move that busted through this almighty trend line of 2022. And now you've most likely completed wave 1 within wave 3, and now you're in wave 2 within wave 3, about to backtest the trend line. So what would be the thing that nobody expects this to do here? It would be for this price to actually go higher, right? Because now you're starting to make, on the daily chart at least, you're starting to make lower lows, lower highs, right? So you're starting to see the bearish, you're basically starting to see the sellers take over here. And I think it's roping a lot of people into the downside. A lot of people were thinking, oh, here we go, finally, just to backtest this trend line. Exactly what we talked about on this channel. I do believe the trend line will be backtested, but I think it's possible that the CPI actually brings the market for one more swing higher, and that swing is going to rope in everyone to the upside, because they're going to be like, oh, look, inflation is continuing to reduce the velocity at which it increases. Perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. This market is going to new highs. I think that's likely what's coming this week. We see that big bullish sentiment show up on Tuesday, maybe going into Wednesday, but then Thursday, Friday, I think you begin the descent that will eventually take you to this trend line. And think about that. That'll be a relatively sizable downside move, because if we see one more new high on this move, think about how far you're going to fall to hit that trend line, right? You're literally going to go something like 424, that's just an approximate guess, down to 395. I mean, that would be, that'd be perfect, right? That would be the perfect amount to scare everybody, make them forget all about, that inflation is starting to come down and all about anything that could be considered bullish. People will forget about that, and they'll be back to the bear side right at the moment that you test the trend line, which is, I think, what we should be expecting to happen if we're expecting to see continuation of this bullish move here. So this week could be seriously volatile. And when I look at the VIX, I'm like, okay, here we go. Weekly chart. We're starting to see some green emerge here. We had the first green candle we've had in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks. And now we've got the VIX turning green. I would not be surprised to see another green weekly candle emerge here, maybe even 2 or 3 more, as the market makes this downside trendline backtest move. So I think this week is going to be tricky. I think it's going to start off bullish and end very, very bearish. And as I've said, that conclusion, that bearish sentiment that's going to arrive right as this trend line is backtested, or maybe you go below the trend line to really scare people, something like this. This is where I'm buying. I'm going to buy at this trend line. I'm going to buy below this trend line. I do expect this to be the greatest buying opportunity of 2023. And it's going to come after a major swift downside move, but it's going to set up a higher high and a higher low, just as we've already got. We've already got the higher low. We've got the higher high. Let's look for another higher low. That's going to be exactly what we need to see. The self-fulfilling prophecy of the uptrend, the most basic technical indicator you have, is literally just higher highs and higher lows. And you know what you got to acknowledge here? Great on the RSI. Look at this. You don't have any bearish divergence yet. You don't necessarily have a whole lot of reason to believe that this move is over just yet. I think if we come up for one more high, that should be the bearish divergence we need to see to confirm that that is the intermediate high for now until we get the back test of the trend line. So what can we expect for the dollar to do this week? I think at the beginning of the week, it will continue to consolidate under this trend line. Monday and Tuesday, consolidate under this trend line. Maybe the market moves higher and everyone's convinced, all right, here we go. This is the big move to the upside. And then by Wednesday or Thursday, dollar breaks through and, market is down. That's what I think we need to expect, at least be weary of. And maybe the DXY is going to set up some perfect bearish divergence here. Lower high on the RSI, but higher high in price. That would indicate that this is likely to be a weak move on the DXY. And although it will be a trendline breakout, very possible to be a false breakout. But I still think we got to acknowledge this on weekly candles, because I don't think it's just going to be, one more week of upside on the DXY. I think it still could be like, 2 to 3 more weeks, maybe even 4 more weeks. Maybe it's literally all the way through the end of March. I don't know. I would actually pay attention to the spring equinox. That could be a major inflection point. And what's brewing right now, especially if we go back to what I've drawn here on the SPY, I think it's possible that you're going to have the downside move coming into the spring equinox, right? And you sort of round out your bottoming inflection point around the spring equinox before then ripping higher. Because I do think the markets are in a bullish configuration at this point. I think the DXY is corroborating that. And so any moves that the DXY has to the upside, I think those are ultimately going to be failures. And I think that any moves that the market has to the downside are just going to be buying opportunities. So that's what I think is emerging here. It's positive. It's bullish. I'm very weary of the short side right now, but I am positioned on both sides of the trade. You better believe I'm positioned on both sides of the trade, because I literally don't know. All I'm talking about here is pure speculation. But I'm trying to create a schematic that we can follow for this week and just sort of react accordingly. You know, you have those temporary dynamic systems. Those dynamic systems are meant to be changed when new evidence emerges. So this is the schematic we have going in this week. And if the evidence changes, well, then we will adjust accordingly. So literally that simple, dude. All right. Get ready for that volatility. I think it's coming. Get ready for the CPI trickery, dude. Okay. Dude.